West USA, welcome to another edition of our Monday morning podcast. Appreciate everybody getting up and joining us this morning. And let's jump into what's on tap today. Of course, we got Todd Menard here to give us a look at the numbers. Justin Frederick is here to give us our mortgage minute. And I'm going to share in our three-pack 3 tips to managing sellers' expectations. Last week, we talked about managing buyers' expectations. Okay. And then I'm going to stick around. We had to make a last-minute pivot. So I'm going to give everybody a glimpse into some of the trainings that we do on our team and helping people overcome the objections of interest rates. So hopefully it'll be good. All right. As always, if you've got any comments or questions, please feel free to email us at podcast@westusa.com. All right, let's jump into the 3,000 announcements that we have this morning. All right, Nick, numbers are in.
Numbers are in. So this is the 2025 production. Every single year, West USA submits our rankings to Riz Media, Real Trends, Swamp Hole, along with all of the other thousands and thousands of brokerages across the nation. Just a reminder, when you're looking at these numbers, West USA has 3,000 agents. We are just in Arizona, and we are going up against national brokerages that are in all 50 states that have hundreds of thousands of realtors. So these numbers are really, really impressive, and we're very, very proud to be able to show those off today. Number 1, independently owned brokerage in Arizona. Number 11, top movers ranked in transactions. I want to just talk about this really quickly. That means that comparing 2024 to 2025, West USA agents in 2025 did so many more transactions than every other brokerage in the nation. We were almost top 10 in the nation by how many more transactions we did in 25 than 24. That's a very big deal. And then almost as more impressive is the volume, because Arizona's price point is definitely on the lower side compared to some of the more expensive states we've got. And then, come on, 4.2 billion with a big old B. In volume closed by West USA agents in 2025. That is not something you want to shake a stick at. Those are some pretty impressive numbers.
Yeah, and we can credit it to all the CE classes that we offer.
I did not say that.
No. So join Todd this Wednesday for 3 hours of fair housing from 9 to 12. And as always, all of our events can be found on your dashboard. Just go to the calendar, or if you're not with West USA, just go to westusacalendar.com. All right, so 3 hours of real estate disclosure coming up Tuesday at the Scottsdale office, so make sure you get signed up for that. Home warranty training. All right, this is going to be an in-person class Tuesday, tomorrow between 9 and 12 at the Chandler office. All righty, new headshots. All right, so before, people can't see the camera before we go live, and Todd and Justin were looking at the back of their heads and on the camera to see,
who's going bald first.
Yeah. So it might be time for a headshot update, guys.
Probably is.
So that's going on tomorrow. This is going to be free to agents. So tomorrow between 11 and 12 p.m. at the Mesa office. All right, Red Pill Reality Rocket Lister class, talking about top producers and what sets top producers apart. So that is going to be at the Mesa office on April 22nd from 1 to 3 p.m. All right, VA homebuyer benefits. All right, so big lunch and learn on working with VA buyers and all the ins and the outs. So that's coming up Wednesday from 10 to 11:30 a.m. And I'm looking to see what office this is at.
At the American Title Office.
Oh, it's at the American Title Office. Okay, there you go. That's why I didn't see it.
Yep.
All right, Todd.
Wow.
Yeah.
Look at that.
What's going on in the market?
I don't know, but it's not month end, so I guess I forgot to take that part of the slide off. Thanks, everybody. Thanks for joining me today. Today we're going over the Greater Phoenix Metropolitan Market Statistics for the week ending April 20th, 2026. Here's what we had. 79 days closed on market, a 4.05 month supply. Absorption rate was at 24.68. Average list price this past week, $784,871. Average sale price this past week, $609,137. And the sellers were able to retain 97.70% of their list price to sale price ratio. Looking at active inventory, up slightly to 26,864. Pending is at 5,000. That's not a misprint. Closed units at 4,215 month to date for the month of April. New listings, we took 2,265. Fair enough. 92 days on market for active and 79 for closed. Lower left-hand side, only one market had a contraction between 3 and 4 million. That whole market represents 1.17. So obviously the market continued to just trudge along. And if you look at the thing I like about this particular slide, but this particular portion of it for consumers, and this is a great slide for everybody at West USA. You guys can use all of this material any way that you can or need to. But again, this gives you an opportunity, whether you're a buyer, a seller, or a looky-loo, or whoever it is, or a realtor, to quickly look at the price ranges on the left-hand side, look at the number of units. This is active inventory, days on market for each category. And it doesn't really matter too much to you when you're looking in a particular price range for a consumer, what percent of the entire inventory that represents. But it helps because realistically, you get to see what market segments you might choose to use in your marketing and go after, target, if you would, in your marketing efforts. So looking at the new listings this past week, 2265, just barely under 2385 the week before, 2212 last year, and 2100 2 years ago. So again, just there's more sellers entering, and this has been rather consistent. Just even to the right where the blue is, look at, we took 11,181 listings in March, 999.20 in February. Yes, those numbers are a little below what was taken in March, but in 2025. But what ended up happening was that really helped encourage the market and bring more buyers to the table. Everybody thought we were jumping into a seller's market. Looking at active inventory, 26,964 is where we are right now for active, not much higher, less than last year. So when we're looking at all these properties being added to the added to inventory, that's not necessarily all these properties. We're basically 2,400 per week is about what we need to maintain the inventory level, not increase it. So again, it doesn't mean that there's so many listings out there that we're moving into a buyer's market. Looking at pending is at 5,000. Here's another great example, 4923. We haven't seen 5,000 really show up as a peak number. But 4520 last year, same period, 4599. So we have easily 450 to 500 more buyers in escrow at any one time than we had last year. That's great. 500 more sales, hopefully more closings. And we're finding that actually the number of properties that are falling out of escrow is now down to about 12 to 15% versus that 1 month when 3 months ago, 2 months ago, where we were losing almost 25 to 30% of properties were canceling during escrow. That's not happening right now. 4,215 properties have closed so far month to date. That's versus 4,140, so we're ahead in that category. Looking at month supply, we're down to a 4-month supply, 4.36. We were at a 4.5-month supply last year. Look at that 2 years ago. Well, there's your reason why. Obviously everybody we were in that deep seller's market. But again, right now you are in a buyer's market, but the market is acting as though it's in a seller's market, meaning that's what everybody thinks. So to the better negotiator goes the spoils. In other words, if you're a better negotiator and you're the listing agent, your seller's going to get what they deserve. If, on the other hand, you are a good buyer's negotiator, then in that particular case, your buyer will probably come out ahead of the market curve today. Median price at 450, again, meaning that the market is not taking off. The prices are not going out going up ridiculously quickly. In fact, we are actually on target for about a 3.75% appreciation for the year. And again, we're looking at list price to sale price retention. It was up to 97.7 this week. In other words, the properties that went under escrow, the sellers weren't giving up any more than that number way over on the left-hand side, 97.8. So that's a 2.2% negotiation or discount in the list price at the time the contract was accepted by the seller. In this particular case, you're almost at that same number. Last year, we were at 97.2, giving up a little bit more. And just a little bit of movement here. These never really stray greatly. If you see a month that's 100%, obviously it's you're definitely in a seller's market in the thick of it. That's what's going on right now, Mike.
All right, great stuff. All right, Justin, top that.
All right. Well, we had another good week in the mortgage rates, so let's hope it continues. Let's go straight over in Iran. Let's see if we can't keep control over those straits. So yeah, good week this week, or last week. what we're going to be talking about today is more technology. We had a good response last week when we were talking about some of the technologies that mortgage lenders are offering, and we saw a lot of. We actually saw a big movement in people doing transactions over online, applications online. So pretty cool to see that this had an impact on that. But what we're going to be talking about today is in our Fairway Now app, we have a mortgage calculator, so you can calculate what a mortgage payment would be for an individual buyer. Also, you can look at what affordability is, so you can look at this up front. So let's dive into this. So we're going to be looking at our app. Over here on the right is our app. So at the top, do I have to press a button to make it?
Yeah.
Okay. So at the top, this is be co-branded. You can see Amy is the partner. You would be the partner and your brand would be at the top. Now you click the account over on the right and it's going to come up with this calculator. So you can see all these calculators. We're going to go to mortgage calculator to start with. And we're going to look at just what does it cost us to purchase a $400,000 house? You can select the loan type. We're going to go in here. We can type it out or we can drag it across. We're going to type it out, 400,000. And then we can go down, put in the down payment. Minimum down payment for conventional is 3%. So you can either type in a down payment that's over the 3%, or you can put 3%. And you can do the term, do the interest rate. I would look up the average interest rates for this particular scenario. We're going to do 6%. And then you can go down to advanced options. You guys have the ability to get the taxes and insurance. So go ahead and put those property taxes in there. It doesn't matter what state or county it is when you're calculating this out. But for a $400,000 house, we put $1,500 as the property taxes, $1,500 minimum for homeowners insurance, I would say at this point. And then we're going to put a $50 HOA in here just to be fair. So we're going to run results. And here you go. It populates your mortgage payment. You can see the total payment, and then you can see the breakdown below. Okay. Then you can actually scroll down, and there's an amortization schedule that you can play with. You can share this to your client so you can see what's going to principal, interest, and it breaks that down. You can save the calculation or share it right there below the view monthly breakdown. Or you can save this into your calculations with your buyer. Your buyer can also do this if you share this app with your buyer. They'll be able to do the same things, but we're going to save this as 123 Nick Street.
Ooh.
Yeah. All right, so it's saved. You can see it below. All right, now you can go down and you can also play with how fast can I pay this off if I'm using extra money. So $100 more a month, 3 years sooner they would pay it off. Go to all the way to 5 years or $500. 10 years sooner, they would pay off the mortgage. There you go. Now we're going to go back and we're going to check out the affordability calculator. So this will let you know based on what somebody makes annually. We're going to do $75,000 a year as a household income. Monthly expenses, let's say a $50 credit card payment and a $450 car payment. So they have $500 in expenses. And then let's put in their down payment. We're going to do $12,000. That's 3% of $400,000. We're going to adjust that interest rate back to the 6%. And then we're going to do the taxes and the insurance under the advanced calculation here so that we can level it out to what we were doing the mortgage calculator with. And this will tell us what somebody can afford at this. So you can see that it's green all the way over to the left, the little slide. And you can slide it over. You can see your debt to income ratio 37% below and the monthly payment. You can see we're at 335, or our debt to income ratio has already gone up to 43%. And that's the back end ratio. That's everything that's included into it. We can slide it all the way over. You can see that they can qualify for the $400,000 if they have great credit, but it's pushing it. It's definitely pushing it. So the reason why the payment's a little off here is the mortgage insurance isn't being calculated as accurately because there's no credit scores. Also, the HOA is not included in here. But you can see that it starts to push things. So it gives you an idea of what household incomes can support. So I definitely think this is a good calculator for people to use. I think one of the biggest things that we get is a lot of individuals we get maybe make $50,000 a year, and they're trying to buy that $500,000 house. If you do this calculator here, we can work together to kind of set realistic expectations on what things look like. Mortgage calculator along with the affordability. And we really don't want people pushing things to the max. We don't want people leaving their homes. So if you want this calculator, please email or text Amy Landway over at my office. Her email's there, her phone number's there. Feel free to give her a call. She can set you up with this. And again, it will be co-branded in your name. If somebody puts in an application, you will receive text message updates on where they're at. Mike, I mean, you use this.
I use this all the time. I mean, sometimes I'm just on the fly and the client wants to look at a home, and we're going out and looking at 5 or 6 homes, and I don't have time to run numbers on 5 to 6 homes before I go out. But if they're like, hey, I really like this house, and the house is at $550, what do you think my payment's going to be? And I use this app all the time.
Yeah.
And it looks sharp.
Yeah.
Like it's really cool looking.
User friendly.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if I can do it.
One of the things, and I saw it showed the mortgage insurance premium when you were going through.
Yeah.
And I think that the big thing that most agents fail to remember is that they have to add in the upfront, or they have to add in the monthly. And so, I mean, that showed $148.
Yep.
Imagine if you were communicating with your client and you gave them a payment $150 under what the lender's now telling them. It's not professional. It puts you in a really bad situation. So yeah, I think I really like it for that specific reason, is that it's not leaving anything out.
100%. And that's the reason why there's the credit scores there. So if you don't do the credit scores accurately, it's not going to give you an accurate mortgage insurance premium. So make sure you do that, and it'll give you a solid payment to go off of. But thanks, guys.
Oh, yeah, good stuff. All right. I'm just going to put this slide back up one more time. Reach out to Amy and grab this app. It's great. It's simple. It's easy to use, and it's just, my clients love it. So, all right, let's jump into our 3-pack. As I mentioned last week, we talked about managing buyers' expectations. So if you missed that, I think we can go back onto YouTube and look up last week's podcast.
Yes.
And it'll be there. So now we're talking about sellers' expectations. So how are we managing their expectations, especially prior to the house going on the market? You can't afford for big surprises. Sellers do not like that. They want to know, if you tell them this is how much their home is worth, they need to understand all the different variables that go into it so they have a decent understanding of what their walkaway number is. So first one is expect concessions. Obviously, we're seeing this a lot in this market. You need to expect, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, that in this market, the buyer is going to be asking for seller concessions. Very, very few contracts are coming over without seller concessions. But one of the things I like to take it a step further, Todd, is we're obviously pulling comps on homes to determine value. And so if I'm looking in a specific neighborhood, and especially if there's same floor plan comps and there's 5 or 6 closings in the last 60 to 90 days, and these are the comps that you are using to establish value, take a look at the concessions. Okay, that information is on there if it's closed. And so, like I was doing one the other day with a client, and everything in that neighborhood was between 2% and 3% in seller concessions. So now I know, hey, listen, you can expect the seller to be asking for 2 to 3% in seller concessions. We'll try to negotiate better, but that's your baseline.
Yeah, and we've been talking about this when we do the stats, and I get down to that list price to sell price retention number, and then we usually have a conversation about concessions. So Mike, you know what? That is probably the premier demonstration to your client of why they need a real estate agent in their business. because this is pivotal. You basically already know, hopefully have already received, and Mike never shares what the next topics are with Nick and I, but the thing is that, usually we've already given them at some particular point up front an estimated settlement sheet or something along that line so that we understand what the buyer's requirements for funding is to be able to have the amount of money necessary to close. And concessions are a huge thing. And if you're just looking at list price, sometimes people pay more because they need the concessions. So you might go in higher than maybe you should have gone in without looking at the concessions. And that's how agents leave money on the table. On the other hand, it could be a reverse effect. You don't need any concessions. You just identified that the market's offering 3. Well, take that 3 off the sale price. Wait a minute, in addition to the 2, and start, maybe at that 3 to 5% less number.
I think the concession conversation is one that I see happen a lot, and I see a lot of agents sitting in the room kind of nodding their head, and they have no idea what we're talking about. And I think it's an important one that agents take a step back, kind of check the ego a little bit, and be okay to be the one that goes, I have no idea what we're discussing right now. So let's just really quickly, 101, where am I finding the concession information at when I go to look for it?
Oh, just at the bottom of the listing. It'll have all the information: original list price, adjusted sales price, final sales price, how many days on market, and it's in the bottom section of the listing, and it'll say seller concessions.
So inside the MLS, I'm going in and I'm looking at the history details. Yeah,
each listing. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is the reason, everybody yells at Armless, or they think they're like, oh, Armless, they charge fees if you don't enter the information correctly. I got to tell you, if you don't, this is part of the reason why there's what's called data integrity in the industry for Armless. That's one of the major things they're concerned about. And the fees, those just come along with agents that don't respond to the first tap on the hand or the slap in the face. Let's hit their pocketbook and see how that makes them pay attention. But it's garbage in, garbage out. So please make sure, if you're a listing agent, that you have, or even, the listing agent, that you've gone in and properly identified at the close, because sometimes these last minute financial changes happen right before closing. You need to go back in and make those corrections.
All right. Second one that your sellers need to understand, they need to expect more negotiations during the BINSR process. Buyers are becoming, especially my buyers, but it's just how I roll.
It's a personal issue.
Buyers are becoming very aggressive on BINSR items because they know it's a buyer's market, Todd, and so
fight. Go for it. Yeah.
So I am explaining to my sellers that this is going to be the inspection process, and this is what a BINSR is, and you can expect that your buyer, maybe they're not, but always expect for the worst, and they're going to be looking for even more concessions. And that's why sometimes when I'm the seller and I do receive an offer, I am calling that loan officer and asking them certain questions. And one of the questions is, what's the allowable concessions that buyer can have? So I know if it's 6% and they're only asking for 2% on the contract, I know that this buyer's in a position that they can be incredibly aggressive. But this is, but also I think it's a great idea, especially the age of the home. Get a pre-home inspection done. Call Anthony. Just have your seller pay for the inspection ahead of time and get ahead of the glaring issues and see if there are some serious things that, hey, listen, this is coming your way. Let's take care of these items now so that we have a smoother transition period. And then also, I'm, depending on the strength of the offer, I am setting the expectations for the buyer's agents. I have a deal that's closing, I think, next week, and buyer was very aggressive on concessions, very aggressive on price. We negotiated through that, but I let that buyer's agent know, go, listen, I mean, if there's something coming back and there's something wrong, there's a roof issue or an HVAC issue, my seller understands that they will take care of it. But if we're going to accept this offer, you just need to be prepared. If your client's going to nickel and dime my seller, they're going to tell you to go pound sand.
Let me just kind of precursor all three of these, is the fact that a buyer needs concessions no matter what market we're in. If we're a buyer's market or a seller's market, the buyers need help. because they typically just don't have the funds necessary to close up front all of the funds. Now add in compensation, and that's even one more piece. Mike, you brought up a really important term, maximum allowable lender concessions. So just a quickie is FHA allows 9% seller concessions. Sure, if the person's an 800 FICO and puts 20% down. But again, most of our buyers are probably 620, 680 FICOs, and they're probably putting 5% down. And so that would slide that identical same thing I just told you from 9% to 1.5%. That's a big drop. So it's important for you to ask the lender so that you know how much that loan's guidelines, every loan guideline's different, every lender's loan guidelines on a particular loan are different. Make sure you know what that number is, because I don't know how you write an offer without knowing that number. I really don't. It's like not knowing how much the buyer has available to close. And the nice thing is that compensation today is not as big of an issue with the concession line, because the lenders all now, as long as the customary closing costs are below the maximum allowable guideline, they'll finance, or not finance, but the lender will allow greater concessions.
And I wish Justin stuck around. I don't know I don't know what lenders are supposed to, are allowed to answer or not. But one of the other questions I ask lenders, and I get most of them to tell me, hey, your buyer just submitted an offer on 123 East Main Street. They're asking for 3% in seller concessions. My seller is getting ready to counter. How much do they really need? And you'd be amazed on what a lender will tell you.
Absolutely.
I think it's interesting as we went from buyer expectations last week to seller expectations this week, the crossover of the two. As the agent, no matter the side you're representing, the better you're communicating, the more questions you're asking, and just the overall job that you're doing to explain to no matter who the party is, this is what we're going to look at, this is what we're trying to work on, what can they do? You're just asking the question, you're having conversations, you're collaborating, and those agents that do that the best, those transactions are going to be seamless. That's why when you talk to consumers about their experience, those agents that set expectation up front and continue to set expectation, no matter the side they're on, no matter the situation, their clients are always going to feel the transaction was calmer, smoother, and just better taken care of.
All right, and then the third one is kind of a repeat from last week, but just seen it a lot. Have set the expectations on your HVAC systems and roofs. Buyers are paying closer attention to the age of HVAC systems and roofs.
So are insurance companies.
So, exactly. So, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, and not even say Mr. and Mrs. Seller, you as the agent, just take your phone, go take a picture of the labels, the serial numbers of the back of the HVAC systems and the water heater, run it through ChatGPT. They don't know how old these systems are, and just figure out the age. And then just have an HVAC maintenance company or service company come out and service it and see if there's any issues. Because either way, if there's issues, it's coming up at some point. But I know if they come out and I did this with a roof inspection. It was my own property. Had my roofer come out, do an inspection. I go, what am I getting myself into? And he's like, yeah. He goes, it's about $500 in repair. So I'm like, here's the check, $500. I took all of his information, the invoice, the receipt, everything, uploaded into the documents tab, and the buyer goes, oh, roof was taken care of, or HVAC system was taken care of. So get, especially this summer, because again, it's just, now your seller thinks that they've got a purchase price and they got these net proceeds, this number is stuck in their head, and then the roof and the HVAC comes back during the inspection period, and it's just a tough conversation.
Imagine you as a listing agent did everything right, and along comes the buyer, and during the inspection period, another agent who is very, very intelligent representing them told them, you probably need to go investigate insurance during the inspection period so you can use it as an item of disapproval. And the consumer's like, oh, okay. And they get a number on a 1,400 square foot home that costs $325,000. They got an insurance quote of $1,350. And this just happened to my wife. And so she said, wow, that's awful high, which Justin was just talking about, put in $1,500. So she said, well, let me just think about this. Why, to the insurance company, she asked, is it so high? And they said, well, the age of the home is between 15 and 25 years, which means the roof's going to go bad, the air conditioner's going to go bad. They're going to probably, if they haven't replaced the water heater recently, going to replace the water heater. These are all things that could be, gone after the insurance. And so she said, well, let me get back to you. She contacted the seller. The seller had the roof was replaced 4 years ago. The hot water heater was just recently replaced. And so the point, what I'm saying is this. You as a listing agent could do everything right, but failing to identify to the buyer's agent what the true age of those appliances are, or the roof, could actually be the key that makes your house close. It could be the final piece because of the insurance factor from a buyer's perspective.
Interesting. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah. I would take the minute, but we're kind of out of time. I just want to make sure agents understand there's 2 programs running that could benefit you if you have some stubborn sellers. The Zillow Preview program is a newer program. It allows you and your seller to kind of take that home out for a walk. It doesn't accrue days on market. It doesn't accrue history inside the MLS. It's something that you do straight from Zillow. And then if you do have that listing that you want to push a little bit higher, the Zillow Showcase program, we're seeing a lot of success there. Either one of those programs are definitely something you should get information in if you don't have it already. Shoot an email to propertyinfo@westusa.com, propertyinfo@westusa.com to get more information on those, especially when you're working with sellers.
Nice job, man.
All righty. Well, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, we had a scheduling conflict, so our scheduled guest couldn't make it this morning, and so we're just going to step in and do some of the discussions that we have on our team. And one of our central focus points, obviously, we are constantly trying to help people build wealth in real estate. And people always just get stuck on one number, and so we have a training that we do, and this is something that we go through with all of our clients, of just understanding the 4 ways you make money on a home. And oftentimes, this is one of the things that just gets them off the fence because they understand the full scope of how money works and how real estate works. So just at the end of the day, there's so many different objections, but these are the 2 common objections that we're still seeing. People are complaining, and not as much, but people are complaining about interest rates. People don't want to jump in the market because interest rates are too high, and and they remember the days when they were in the 2s and the 3s and so forth. And we all know how, it's just the same old thing over and over. And then the market's going to crash. I'm going to buy this house, and then next year it's going to drop 10% in value. And so I'm waiting for the market to become stronger and so forth. And so this whole concept of the 4 ways you make money is really eliminating these objections. And so here's my common responses. Okay, Todd, you're concerned about interest rates. You're concerned about market crash. All right. Do you like money?
Of course.
Okay, because if the answer is no, this conversation's dead. Yeah. Like I don't want to work with you if you don't like money, right? Okay. Because that's what real estate's all about. It's about making money. Okay, and then the next question I'm asking them, and these are the 2 questions I start off all my buyer and seller consults with. Okay, what does retirement look like? Walk me through the end of the road for you and your family. What are you in? Common responses, I don't know. I think I'm probably just going to work till the day I die. I'm like, that sucks.
Or they think they're going to live on Social Security.
Yeah. And some people say, hey, you're just going to be that greeter at Walmart. And I'm like, I would welcome that. That'd be a great job for me.
High eye.
Yeah. Show me that receipt.
Show me the money.
All right. And then I go, okay, so you're concerned about the market crashing. You're concerned about property values going down. What if your property value goes down? What if? Just got to hang on to the house longer.
Yeah, it doesn't affect my monthly payment.
Doesn't affect your monthly payment. Yeah. That means you're just going to hold on to the house longer because eventually
it's going to come back.
It always goes back up.
Historically, forever, it's gone up.
Yeah. So now we're just talking about tacking on years to having to own a house as opposed to still continue to invest in your landlord's real estate investment plan. And then I say rates are just one of the numbers. I always got a typo. I go through this all the time. Dang it. But rates are just one of the numbers of the equation. That's all it is. So we're going to jump into the 4 ways we make money in real estate.
Yeah. I just want to talk about that that retirement retirement thing. Sometimes if people have a misunderstanding of what the down the road might look like. And the importance here is, sure, they can go to My Social Security anytime and see what they've accumulated so far and what their monthly would be if and when they retire. But here, the problem is, does your company offer you a pension? Do you have an aggressive savings program? I mean, how are you going to afford to survive when it's time to retire? And to your point, the only answer most people say is, well, I already know I'm going to have to work till I die.
Yeah, yeah, and and our focus on our team is helping people build portfolios of real estate. But yeah, it's a good point. Walk me through it. Yeah. Where do you want to retire? Where do you want to be close to your grandkids? Do you
They all say yes to that one at some point.
Yeah. So, how are you? What's your current plan on how to get there? Yep. And I'm going to show you how real estate can help you get there.
Love it.
So we jump into the 4 ways. And people, for the most part, are really hyper-focused on appreciation because they get stuck on what if property values go down. But appreciation is just one of the numbers. And it's very simple to understand. I buy a house for $400, goes up to $425. I've just made $25,000 on that house. And for a lot of people, that is where it stops. That's just how people, the average consumer views real estate.
The value of a property.
And so we call we call it the real estate 401k plan, our principal buy down. This is the best part about real estate is you own a home, and every time you make your monthly payment, your principal goes down. Yeah. Okay? And then let's say you live in the home for 2 years and you move and you put a renter in there. This is why we try to always talk people out of selling their home. Yep. Now we call it your real estate 401k plan. You now have somebody investing into your retirement because every time they pay you rent and you make your mortgage payment, your principal goes down. And then I don't get into the details of tax benefits, but there are huge tax benefits, huge write-offs of the interest. That is money that you're making.
It reduces your tax liability every year.
Yeah. And then positive cash flow. So when you do rent it out, and if your monthly payment is $3,500 and you're getting $4,000 a month in rent, okay, that's $500 a month times 12 times 28 years, and at the end of 28 years, you have no principal, no loan balance. So we'll dig into each specifically now.
All right.
So I love this. Yeah. So I base this whole illustration on a $350,000 house.
Perfect.
Okay. And so let's just say in the next 5 years, home prices are expected to appreciate by 25%.
Overall. Yes.
Overall.
Yes.
And let's say that's all it appreciates. Mm-hmm. You're going to own this house for 10, 15, 20 years. And let's say it only goes up by 25%. Okay. But at the end of the time that you sell it, you bought the house for $350,000. It's gone up by 25%. You have just now made $87,500 in profit. And if you're an FHA buyer, you put 3.5% down to buy this house. So you just made $87,500 and you only invested $12,250 in cash
return.
Yeah. So ROI.
Yeah. The appreciation, for anyone that would like to know, since the recording of appreciation in the state of Arizona, so put that in the mid 50s, Arizona has averaged 4%. And if anybody's just recently lived through the last 5 years, we had 1 year where we had an increase of 16% in 1 year. So, again, it will always cycle back. And I can't wait to get to the point where renting it out might work, because to me, you can't afford the money. Say you lost your job, it's your house, and you just can't wait to keep it because the market's going down, the value's going down, and you just lost your job. Mike, you gave somebody probably the best information is to research, move out, go get yourself an apartment you can afford, or a rental property you can afford, and rent your property out.
Sure.
And it can preserve your property. And when you get your job, you get your income back. At the end of the year, tell the tenant you're not renewing and move back.
Yeah, so this whole illustration, so again, let's just say you're going to hang on the house for 30 years and you've lived in it a couple of years and now it's a rental property. So you've invested $12,250 and in 30 years you've made $87,500. Doesn't seem like a ton, but hey, I'll take that all day long. Now, this is the best part. So you got the $350,000 home. You will make 360 mortgage payments throughout the life of the loan. Obviously, every mortgage payment has principal and interest, and every payment made subtracts from that principal. This is what I love about this concept. Once that loan is paid off, and let's just say it never went up in value, you now have $350,000 in cash equity. And when you rent, I love this, you pay into your landlord's real estate 401k program.
Totally. And when you're the landlord, you collect that in addition to the $350,000.
So now you got $350,000 plus the $87,500.
Yeah.
And it just keeps getting better.
It just keeps getting better.
All right, positive cash flow. So let's just say, based on your $350,000 home, let's just say your payment is, and of course these are numbers vary
General
on
terms, right?
But general terms. If you obtained a loan today, let's just say your monthly payment was $2,500, and that monthly payment, as far as your mortgage payment, is never going to go up. All right, and if you were to rent out your home, let's say your house rented for $3,000. Obviously, that's $500 in positive cash flow a month. Now, if this worked out perfect, which doesn't, you will have made $168,000 over the next 28 years just on positive cash flow. Now, people always go to me and they'll say, well, okay, well, what if the house sits vacant and I got to replace carpet? That's why I only do that flat base minimum appreciation. The house is going to go up, in my opinion, more than 25% over 30 years. And
oh my gosh,
and I'm not increasing the rent amount because it's just really simple terms, but $168,000 over the next 28 years.
You know, and if just like a financial planner would sit with you, take these baselines and then show you what's going on in the market today. They can't predict tomorrow, but they can look back a little bit, and they're going to say to you, well, okay, wait a minute. If you're saying over 30 years it's only going to go up 25%, but the reality is every 10 years it should go up 30%, and then you sit back and they do that calculation for you, and then they say, well, if you don't live on the positive cash flow, if you reinvest that to pay off principal, whether it's a biweekly monthly payment, so you pay one more month per year and pay off in 21 instead of 30, or you were to subsidize more of that, you can literally pay off a property in as low as maybe 11 to 12 years if you didn't need to live on the income.
Right, yeah, you take that $500 a month,
put it down on the principal every single time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All righty, and then, of course, tax benefits. Again, we're not accountants, we're not CPAs. I never get into the details, but the interest portion of your mortgage payment, and I just use the term can be tax deductible because I don't know everybody's situation. But at a 6% interest rate, your estimated monthly payment would be, again, about $2,500. You would pay, amortized over 30 years, you would pay $240, and this is the one for years that when I was really young and buying houses, that I didn't understand of, okay, I buy this house, but I'm going to pay $242,000 in interest.
Pay it back twice?
How is this a good investment? Yeah. And then I realized at the end of the day, I still needed a place to live, right? I needed a roof over my head. And then I started getting into, tax deductions and needing tax deductions, especially being a real estate agent. So that's a potential of $242,000 in potential tax deductions over the next 30 years.
You know why you call a tax planner? Because not an accountant and not necessarily the person that does your taxes. They're good at that. Give them the information, they'll fill out the forms. That's what they're good at. This is a tax strategist that you're talking about here. This is someone who says to you, this is how you use the tax code to benefit you. Now, I will just make sure everybody's aware. We talked about the fact of writing off interest. You can only write off interest if it's your principal mortgage. But there are ways that tax planners and strategists can help you write off more. And again, just remember that the faster you pay off the principal, the faster the interest goes away and the more money you end up making.
And then when it becomes a rental and you put it into an LLC, it opens up a whole different can of tax deductions.
Yep.
All right. And so what's at stake? So the single property at $350,000 under my model, you made $87,500 on appreciation, $350,000 now in cash equity,
Yep.
$168,000 in positive cash flow. On this single house, you've made now $605,500, and you only used $12,250. So back to the interest rate is just one number.
Yep.
The property values dropping, it's just one factor. It becomes just so many different factors to the equation. Now, imagine if you did this, let's say over the next 10 years, let's say you bought 5 houses.
Well, to your earlier point about tax savings and my earlier challenge to go back a slide was the fact that this is the average person's blue-collar 401k. This is their pension fund. This is how people survive after their careers. And it's not because they have these huge pension funds or, or even a 401k for that matter. It's because their real estate is what has made them their fortune. I remember that when I first came to West USA, our founder, Clay Fouts, was talking, and he was a financial planner earlier in his career, and he kept talking about how everybody that he worked with might have made their money in whatever field they were in, but they made their wealth by owning real estate.
Mm-hmm.
And that got him to convert from financial planning, if I understand the story correctly.
You do.
Into real
exactly
estate.
what he says.
And opening the so please take it from, just don't stick your head in the sand and think everything's going to be okay, and also don't stick your head in the sand and say I could never do this. This is one of those scenarios where unplug your head from where and just go get information and learn how this might be you.
Yeah, and I know several people that, I'm not going to say cash poor, but they're not cash rich.
Mm-hmm.
They're not, they don't have a ton of money in the bank, and they're not taking extravagant vacations. They're just working and they're raising their kids, but they've got millions of dollars in equity in real estate, or they will. And that's how they plan on retiring and using the time now to build that real estate portfolio. And what a great position to be in.
It's funny. Lynn and I invest in properties that are in 55-plus communities, and not just any, but they have to have like really awesome values and services and things going on that warrant the monthly HOA fee. But think about it. Now, as you get to the end of your retirement, end of your business career, and you want to retire, where are you going to go to retire? And so if you're not going to go to Montana and live in Big Sky and fish in the big rivers, then you're probably going to maybe stay in Arizona because it's one of the best places in the world to live based on all of our climate factors and everything. And so where are you going to live? Well, wouldn't you want to live in one of those really nice adult communities, active adult communities where you're out there playing golf every day, you got every resource at your fingertips, and your HOA is a reasonable fee? Well, even a tax planner will tell you at some particular point, it's possible to convert one of your rentals back into a primary residence. But again, just go talk to someone who understands these strategies about how you can do that and preserve the equity that you have.
Well, we're going to digress, but let's just say that you want to live in one of these active adult communities and you're 15 years away. Buy it now.
Absolutely.
Turn it into a rental, and then when it's time to move in, fix it up, and there you go. Pay today's prices.
Yeah, the tenants are giving you the money to improve the property once as long as you're not spending it for other reasons.
All right. Well, anyways, so I appreciate everybody indulging us. If you want any more information about what we presented today, there's my information on the screen, and I'm going to leave you with the very, very long quote of the day. You don't just sell houses, you change a life. You just keep showing up You know why, buddy? You're making a difference. Go out and sell a home.